Hey guys, so I wanted to do a quick video talking about USPSA stage design if you're looking to get into stage design, and also going over some of the stages that I designed and were used in this year 2023. So just to start off with, I'm going to go through some rules that are literally in USPSA's rules, and I'll talk about some things that are opinions of mine, and then I'll go over some of the stages that I designed for this year. So I'm not going to go through literally all of the rules that are in USPSA's rule book about stage design, but I'm going to go over some of the important ones. Rule 1 is obviously safety. USPSA matches must be designed, constructed, and conducted with due consideration to safety. So that's kind of obvious. We don't even think I need to go over that. Second one is quality. The value of a USPSA match is determined by the quality of the challenge presented in the course design. Courses of fire must be designed primarily to test a competitor's USPSA shooting skills, not their physical abilities. So this isn't the tactical games. Pretty simple. Up next is balance. Accuracy, power, and speed are equivalent elements of USPSA shooting and are expressed in the Latin words diligenta vis celeritas. A properly balanced course of fire will depend largely upon the nature of the challenges presented therein. However, courses must be designed and USPSA matches must be conducted in such a way to evaluate these elements equally. So it shouldn't be ridiculously accuracy focused stage, and it also should not be a ridiculously speed focused stage. So it shouldn't be just a test of how accurate you are at extreme range, and it also shouldn't be a total hose fest test of how fast you can pull the trigger without really aiming. Up next is diversity. USPSA shooting challenges are diverse. While it is not necessary to construct new courses for each match, no single course of fire must be repeated to allow its use to be considered a definitive measure of USPSA shooting skills. So basically throw some variety in there. Don't try to reuse too much of the same elements over and over again in consecutive matches. Up next is difficulty. USPSA matches present varied degrees of difficulty. No shooting challenge or time limit may be appealed as being prohibitive. This does not apply to non-shooting challenges, which should reasonably allow for differences in competitors' height and physical build. So basically what that means is, well, yes, things can be difficult. They should be shooting challenges and not track and field. That being said, while yes, you do have to have varying degrees of difficulty, you should try to keep things reasonable, and I'll talk about that later on. Yes, you can make a challenge, but it should be the course should be accessible to basically all levels of shooters. Up next is physical construction. Safety considerations in the design, physical construction, and stated requirements for any course of fire are the responsibility of the host organization, subject to the approval of the range master. Reasonable effort must be made to prevent injury to competitors, officials, and spectators during the match. Course design should prevent inadvertent unsafe actions whenever possible. Consideration must be given to the operation of any course of fire to provide suitable access for officials supervising the competitors. So there's a lot to unpack with this one. First of all, with regards to preventing injury to competitors, officials, and spectators during the match, that's stuff like, you know, if you have a support for a wall, try to keep it out of the fault line so no one's going to run past it or over it and trip over it. If you have steel that is going to be kind of close to the 180 and angled so that frag is going to be coming back towards the spectators, maybe put up a barrel so it's not going to actually be coming through to the spectators. Course design should prevent inadvertent unsafe actions whenever possible. So that kind of goes into the same thing, but another thing we're going to talk about later is preventing access of targets beyond the 180. That I think this falls into that a lot. Consideration must be given to the operation of any course of fire to provide suitable access for officials supervising the competitors. So that is just kind of be mindful when you're designing. Somebody's going to have to be running behind this competitor with a timer. So try not to build any RO traps. And then safe angles of fire. Course of fire must always be constructed to ensure safe angles of fire. Consideration must be given to safe target and frame construction and the angle of any possible ricochets. Where appropriate, the physical dimensions and suitability of backstops and side berms must be determined as part of the construction process. So that's basically, we want to make sure all of the rounds that are fired go into the berm And within that, bear in mind, not everyone's the same height as you. There are very tall shooters. There are very short shooters. If you're going to have a low target, you're going to want to make sure that that's right up against the berm, because you don't want people shooting into the ground and then that shot reflecting up over the backstop. Then we got target locations. When a course is constructed to include target locations other than immediately downrange, organizers and officials must protect or restrict surrounding areas to which competitors, officials, or spectators have access. Each competitor must be allowed to solve the competitive problem in his own way and must not be hindered by being forced to act in any manner which might cause unsafe action. Targets must be arranged so that shooting at them on an as and when available basis will not cause competitors to breach safe angles of fire. This is a rule that is ignored, basically, far too often. When people are designing a stage, they'll put up targets and they won't really give a good look at this. There will be a target that you can stand right by and walk right past while engaging it and going right past the 180. And I've seen 2 shooters be disqualified for shooting at a target that was perfectly available. It could have easily been hidden better. And while this isn't so much of an issue to someone who's like a high-level shooter, like A, even B, or probably even a lot of C-class shooters, they would probably not make that mistake. But when you're building the stage, you have to keep in mind this D-class first-time shooter shows up at a match. It's very easy for them to become disoriented as to where they are. So if they see a target, they should be able to shoot at that target. So when you're setting up the stage, you want to make sure and take a second look at everything and make sure that no target that is past the 180, or really even super close to the 180, is still visible. You want to hide that target with a wall or a barrel stack, and I'll go over that later on. Up next, target placement. Care must be taken with the physical placement of a cardboard target to prevent a shoot-through. When you're designing the idea of a stage and you're putting it to paper, you're either using the target builder kit or SketchUp, whatever tool you're going to use to design your stage. Really look for targets that would potentially be a shoot-through, because if you figure that out when you're in the design stage, that can really make actually putting the stage up on the day a lot easier if you're not having to figure out all kinds of different shoot-throughs. I know some more technical stages this can be more difficult on, but it's just something to keep in mind where you're even designing the stage. So those are some of, not all. I highly recommend reading the rule book if you plan to get into stage design. And let's be honest, if you're interested enough to start designing stages, you probably have read the rule book. Now I'm going to go over some principles that I think are just good ideas and good guidelines when you're designing stages. First of all is just be reasonable. When you're designing the stage, you should think of it as, will a C or D class shooter be able to go through this stage and get all of his hits if you remove the time as a factor? So, for example, here's a Texas Star. I love shooting a Texas Star. I think that's kind of the yardstick by which you can measure whether or not a shooting challenge is reasonable or not. Is it more or less difficult than a Texas Star? Because yes, we have all watched people unload a whole magazine at a Texas Star and then run away irritated. But generally speaking, we kind of agree that it's a reasonable target. In the same way, there are target presentations that you'll see at stages, especially at higher level matches, that are in and of themselves quite difficult and difficult to come away from without getting mics and no shoots. But realistically, if you take your time on them, you should be able to come away with clean hits. Just keep that in mind when you're designing the stage. Not everyone is going to be a top-level shooter, so you need to design the stage so that it's not intimidating. It's not going to make someone disgusted if they're not a high-level shooter. To give a quick example, I recently went to a match where probably 30 to 40% of the targets were an IPSC target with only the top third of the target visible above a no-shoot. And out of I think there was like 50-something competitors who shot the whole match, not one single competitor came away from that match without at least one, usually more, mics. And almost everyone also had at least one no-shoot. There was one guy, he had 22 mics, and it's just, I personally, I don't think that's the sort of challenge level that there should be at a level 1 match. I shot Carry Optics Nationals 2023, which was, it was not the hardest match, certainly not even of the year, but it was quite a difficult match from an accuracy standpoint. There was only one shooter who shot Carry Optics Nationals 2023 clean without any mics, and his last name is Jonathan, and he shoots for Canik. I shot that match, and I had 2 mics, so I did better than the overwhelming majority of people, and at that level 1 match, I had 4 mics and at least 1 no-shoot, maybe 2. So in my own personal opinion, like I said, this is just my opinion. This is not a hard and fast rule of USPSA. I think that that is an excessive level of difficulty for a level 1 match, and the sort of thing you should watch out for and avoid. My next principle that I want to go over is, if you're going to add a challenge to a stage, ask yourself genuinely if that challenge makes the stage more or less interesting. And the controversial opinion that I have is that the overwhelming majority of retrograde stages would be better as a non-retrograde stage. So when I say retrograde stage, that's a stage where you start at the front of the shooting area and you have to work your way back. Sometimes this can be done very, very well. Sometimes it can be done in a way which, in my opinion, makes it less of a shooting competition and more of a silly walks competition. If you are going to allow shooters the opportunity and the competitive opportunity to shoot while backing up, that I think is a very cool stage design. If you are going to design a stage where the shooter has to shoot a couple targets up front on the draw and then run back, either doing the Naruto run, which I'm doing in this image here, or the other run where you awkwardly point the gun over your shoulder, in my own personal opinion, the majority of the time that is going to be a stage that I shoot as a chore, not something that I enjoy. And I say this not because, as you can tell by the round shape of my body, it's not because I don't want to run. I'll run downrange all day. That's fine. But in my opinion, running uprange is less about even your own physical fitness and more about how close are you willing to run and pump your arms to the 180 when you are running. And I just think that's not a good skill to test in any fashion. I think that most of these stages that are set up to run uprange, they would be better if you just ran downrange instead. That being said, and here is an example of a stage which I did not design, you can do a retrograde stage, which is very cool if you give people at least the option of shooting while on the move, backing up. It's, I think, a very cool and fun skill to test. And on this stage, I did not come away with the win, but I did absolutely put down some competitive times and some competitive runs while shooting on the move in the back, and other people equally did a very good job and had good scores, just shooting a little bit up front, stopping in the middle, and then running all the way to the back. So that's my next point that I want to talk about, which is you should provide options to people. Yes, I have some stages that I'm going to talk about here that were my own design, which are fairly linear, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but a good thing to try to do whenever it's possible is to provide people options, whether they can attack the stage this way or in a very different way. And it's really good if 2 different ways, or sometimes even 3 different ways, can all provide a very competitive run on a stage. That is an awesome design if you can manage that. So those are the tips and the principles that I want to go over, out of context at least. I'll try to provide some more whenever we're going over some of the stages that I designed. So here is the first stage that I used, or that I designed, that was used this year. Its name is Shenaniganery. It's a fairly linear stage, so there's not going to be a whole lot of options, although there's a little bit of, how are you going to attack that front section going on. It was a fun stage. I really enjoy this target. You kind of have to just dive into the wall and then immediately get out after you engage the target. So that was fun. I kind of wanted for you to be able to immediately transition over to this next target over here, but we couldn't really make it work without either putting it right on the 180, which I wanted to avoid, or also causing shoot-throughs onto either targets or walls, which were downrange. But overall, I like this. I like this stage. So whenever we go over the stages, I'm going to go through what I did. So obviously, draw to these two. Use this target to move into the peekaboo target. Get over here to these two targets. Reload it on the way up front. And then, like I said, you had some options up here. I chose to take those and then move over on these two. I just literally, if you watch on the third-person video, that popper up front, I think I put about half of the diameter of the bullet on it because you're going to see the popper falls, but there's also an impact in the berm behind it. So that I definitely got lucky on that one. But this was definitely a fun stage, and it was the first one that I had that was used this year. And now we're going to go on to midship. Midship is the first of many of my stages, which are named after Halo multiplayer maps. Fun fact there. It's kind of thrown together. I didn't really have much of an idea. I just kind of started throwing fault lines around, and this is what came out of it. It's a 3-per stage. I don't know that I'll do too many more 3-per stages because kind of, but it was a fun little stage. Not a lot of options because this one is also a fairly linear stage. But I later on through the year, as I designed more and more, I tried to introduce more options. So the only real option is at the start here, I went to the tuxedo, backed out on that paper, and then used the other ones to start moving. Some other people had different ideas at the beginning, which actually seemed to work out pretty well for them. Just wasn't something I would do. Like one guy, he actually backed up on the draw, went to the far right target that I just engaged there, and then he engaged the tuxedo and the open paper, and then cut the corner. Worked out pretty well for him. This next stage is Lockout. This was a really cool stage. It's the first stage that I designed, which had enough options that people were pretty much tripping over themselves during the walkthrough because you could shoot this all kinds of different ways. It's start anywhere, so even the start position, people were debating which was the right plan. Definitely a lot of options. And it's a lot of shooting on the move. A lot of my stages are kind of a shooting on the move clinic. The one thing that I would change if I did this stage again is one of these targets up in front of these walls here was actually visible from the back, and I kind of wanted it to be visible from the back, but I underestimated how many people would choose to do that. Not all of them did it work out for. In fact, I had a pretty good run just running up to the front, which was kind of what I wanted most people to do. But if I did it again, I think I would have put a no-shoot on that target to make that plan a little bit more challenging. So at the beginning here, whenever I started over on the left, I go to this target and then that one by the stack and that one over there. I think it was kind of a wash whether to do it a couple different ways, but that one target that I drew to disappeared first. Killed my reload there and then run up to the front, and it's about forcing kind of weird transitions while on the move. This next stage is Sanctuary, another Halo map name. It is an unloaded start and something that I kind of wanted to talk about during my principles, but I forgot about it, so I'll talk about it here. 90% of the time, actually 66% of the time, because I only do 3 unloaded starts throughout the year. But I generally like to allow people to move while doing an unloaded start, and just my personal preference, I like an unloaded start to come from a table. I think if a gun's in the holster, it should be loaded, and if it's on the table, that's when it should be an unloaded start. I mean, I can do unloaded from a holster. It's just not, I don't think I would design a stage that way. So I let you unload, so do your load on the move over to the left or the right. Not a lot of people went to the right. I think we kind of put the barrel too far over to the left. But then you kind of shoot on the move through that gap in the walls. when we designed and put up the stage, we just had the walls open, and then we had to put no chutes on the walls because we were afraid of the walls getting shot up. And I think that kind of just that little bit of a reduction in the gap kind of made it a little bit choppier than I would have liked anyways. But overall, it was a fun stage. I think even if I would have also moved that last target to the left, it would have made the middle section a little bit less choppy. But overall, it was pretty fun. I like this stage. Up next, we have Lockout. So this one is an unloaded start that I do have them immediately either engage that popper, which is far downrange, or that open target to the right. It's just kind of fun because normally when people load, they're pretty frantic and trying to hurry, and then they have to immediately slow down and get that one precise shot in. I like this stage. You have some kind of funny movement at the beginning because it's a wide transition and the targets appear in kind of a strange order. And then you have to go downrange, and there's some options to either post up or shoot on the move, but there is a significant amount of either hardcover or no shoots downrange. I wanted to have IPSC targets, but we didn't have any on the day, so I just used some USPSA targets and threw some hardcover out there. It is a fun stage. I will say I didn't mean for this to happen, but when we were putting up the stage, I didn't notice that these two targets, which I'm engaging right there, they were actually available from the start with a bit of a hard lean. But I will say, out of the people that I watch do that, aside from Drew, who's standing there ROing me right now, most people were not benefited by going for that plan because they picked up either a no shoot or a mic, and it just didn't work out for them. So while I didn't mean for that to be available, I don't think it hurt the stage in any way. This next stage is the first one that I am truly proud of. It's called Always Never. There are some options on this stage. You can either go to the middle first or you can go right first. And then within that, there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can engage the targets. Two things that I'm really happy with on this stage. First of all, I like that you activate the popper and then you activate the swinger, and then you have to go over and actually shoot the swinger. This is, in my opinion, a little bit more fun than the traditional activator sequence that we see, because rather than just kind of predicting how it's going to go, there's a little bit of that, but you also have to kind of make the judgment call in the moment as to whether or not that target's going away, whether you're going to shoot the swinger or shoot the static target over to the left. Another thing that I like to do is I have on the right side, there are two poppers, a big one and a little one, in line. So you have to shoot the big popper, and then you can either drive that popper down by shooting it again, or you can do what I'm about to do here, which is I hit the popper, transition over, and then hit the little popper after that other target has been dealt with. This was a really fun stage, and like I said, I would not change a thing about it. I'm super happy how it worked out. And then it's also obviously nice that I was able to take second, and it's always really good that you can get this reaction from your squad mates. That's the way you do it. This next stage is called Intuition. Most of my stages, I like to shoot a whole bunch of shooting on the move. This stage, I tried to make a little bit of a more positional stage where the target difficulty is high enough that you have to really post up and get your hits. Another interesting thing about it is that while this one, you technically can get the swinger from where you activate it, in reality, the majority of people are going to hit the swinger, or sorry, hit the popper and then move while engaging the swinger, which is kind of a neat thing that you don't often get a chance to do. This one, I'm definitely happy with it. It's not the sort of thing that I usually do, but it was fun to challenge myself to design a stage this way, and it seems to work out well despite the very, very rainy conditions of this match. This next stage is called Jelly Bean, after the kind of jelly bean shape of the stage. This was definitely a really fun stage. There are some options, although one is probably more competitive than a lot of the others, at least the main option where you go left first. If you go right, it is technically doable, but I didn't see anyone make it work super good. It is a very fun stage, a lot of shooting on the move. Another thing that I do is you don't need a lot of targets to nail a person down into a position. You can kind of just use 1 or 2 targets to lure someone into a position, and now that they have to go there, they might as well shoot some stuff while they're on their way into that position. The only nitpick I have about this stage is I kind of got to this stage late in setup and didn't really take a great look at it, and these 2 targets right here, I really wish I would have snugged one of them up against the wall so that people had to really move over to that corner. As it was, people just kind of shot it in that same position as they shot the first targets from. But overall, this is a really fun stage to shoot, and I'm happy with how it turned out. This stage is called Versatility. It requires a whole bunch of different things. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. There's some targets that you're going to have to post up for. There's some targets you're going to shoot into position. Some targets you're going to shoot out of position. So it's a pretty fun stage, pretty balanced between a whole bunch of different skill sets going to test. I've been trying to find one thing I would improve about the stage is I kind of had to squeeze the front left portion of the stage. So whenever you're about to see me shoot it, you kind of can just about shoot the left side of the stage and then move over to the right. I kind of wanted you to have to really dig into that corner. But overall, it's a very fun stage, and I'm happy with how it turned out.
And bye. You're finished. Unload and show. Are you ready? Stand by.
This next stage is called The Verge, and it is the first of the stages that I designed that probably didn't go over so well. I wanted to design, first of all, it was a stage for a small bay, so I had to kind of cram it in there, and it was also, I wanted to design sort of a standard stage that also tested shooting while moving with one hand. I think the idea was still good, but I kind of underestimated how much moving it was going to require. We put in a wall that's not there in the diagram that you are going to see whenever I start shooting the stage. It was designed to prevent people from just cutting the whole corner, but I think I really underestimated just how much moving you can do with 2 8-foot fault lines you have to go around. Still, it was a fun stage, but this one is definitely not a lot of people's favorite. That being said, what's one stage that absolutely every single person in the whole world likes? That's right, a hoser stage. This stage is called Sidewinder. It's definitely a hoser. If I did this one again, I think I'd probably make it start anywhere, because I think it probably would have given people a little bit more options. And B, I probably would have probably thrown a little bit of hard cover and no shoots up to just vary the difficulty between the targets. They're all kind of samey. But overall, this was a very fun stage, and even though it is pretty kind of linear, there are a couple of options people found. I just really like that this one tests shooting at max speed while also moving pretty quick on your feet. So this was definitely a fun stage. Definitely a crowd pleaser. Everyone likes a hoser stage. This next stage is called Ascension, and it has more options than it looks like in the diagram, and that's because we kind of messed with it when we were setting it up, and we moved the 3 targets over on the left. We moved them forward just a little bit, which made them available not only from the back, which is where I shoot them from, but also you could shoot them while moving around the right, and then you also have some various options with how you engage certain other things. The front array we also kind of mess with, and rather than making it how it is in the diagram, you could engage those steel either from the back where I engage them from or from the front. Just kind of a neat little stage. It's nothing amazing, but it definitely offers people some options, and it was a pretty fun stage to shoot, and it's kind of interesting that even though I generally love shooting on the move, I kind of shot this stage pretty positionally, so it's pretty fun. This stage is called I Regret Nothing, and that is true. This was a very fun stage, and, well, I do regret one thing. I kind of wish I would have made the front a little bit more smooth when we set it up, but overall, this is a very fun stage. The first position, you have to kind of stand there and at least take that popper before moving out, but once you get out of there, it's just big transitions and moving, absolute fun fest. This is a very fun stage.
Finished. I'm going to clear for him down holster. Range is clear. 1139.
Thank you.
11.
This next stage is called Once the Same, and it is an example of me trying to do a retrograde stage, which offers the option to shoot while backing up. You're going to see I take these two targets and then I back out on these two. So it is retrograde, but it does give you the option of engaging targets on the move rather than running back. It's a very fun stage. It's also an unloaded start that offers you the option to load on the move. And finally, I enjoy the very last position here. It doesn't really have one way of coming in because the targets become visible at different, of kind of an unusual order. But yeah, this is definitely a very fun stage, and I'm happy to say, well, I'm not happy to say that this is the only one, but I'm happy to say that I won this stage. So very fun, very happy with how this stage turned out.
Range is clear. 1809.
This next stage is called It's Just a Thing. It's another pretty positional stage. There's some parts that you can shoot on the move, but a lot of it is kind of positional. You have to post up. It's a pretty fun stage. It's not my favorite, but it's definitely pretty good. Happy with it. An odd thing that I noticed, I think probably because of how many no shoots and hardcover there are, a lot of people, at least people who did pretty good on this stage, had very high points percentage shot. So my run that you're watching here is all alphas, and even some of the more difficult shots like this tuxedo right here was almost a perfect double. Even though I forgot how to reload there, that's fun. It's a very fun stage. Like I said, not too much to say about this one. It's pretty linear, not many options, but people actually surprised me by some people started to over on the left rather than in the back, which I didn't predict anyone would do. And then last but definitely not least, we have King Me. So do you know when you're playing checkers and you make it all the way to one end, you become a king and you can come back? Well, this stage, you have to come back. So you start on either side. There are start sticks that I forgot to put on the diagram, but I promise you they're definitely there on the stage. You're going to see the popper that activates the swinger for the other side, and then you have to go over there. And once you go over there, you'll see the popper that activates the swinger from the side you started on. So you have to go back and get that swinger. So it's kind of fun. It's a symmetrical stage, but you have to shoot it asymmetrically. So maybe I'm a nerd, but I think that's really cool. It's definitely, there's also options of how to shoot it, because some people will take basically all the targets on the side and then go over, and then when they come back to the swinger, they just have to shoot a swinger. Other people, so what I did here is I shoot just the targets I have to at the beginning, and then I go over, shoot everything, and when I come back, then I can shoot on the move, and I have an option for when that swinger is not available, which is fun.
Stand by. If finished, unload show clear. If clear, hammer down, holster. Range is clear, 1086.
So yeah, that's the end of the video. That's all the stages that I did this year. Please give me feedback. Let me know what you think of the stages I did, what you think you would do differently, things that you like, things that you don't like. And I'll say, if you're interested in starting to design stages, at least near me, match directors will generally welcome any help. They have to come up with many stages throughout the year, so some of them they actually come up with themselves. Some of them are just reworks of stages that they found on the USPSA's match library or elsewhere. But yeah, just if you wanted to start designing stages, ask them if they need any help designing stages, and tell them you're interested. And I bet at least a good number of them would say they are happy to accept some help. And finally, just remember, I am currently just an opinionated moron. I'm an RO and I've worked some big matches, but I am not yet a CRO. I'm going to take the CRO course in April and I'm going to get my certification. But at the moment, these are just kind of the opinions of a moron on the internet. So don't take them for more than they're worth. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And I hope you enjoy the stages if you shoot any of the stages at the matches that I'm helping out with. Thanks. Have a good one.